Hi everybody, I hope you're all having a great morning so far. So today we're going to be coming back to our regularly scheduled monologues. And I really do hope though that yesterday's video was informative and that it gave you a lot of good stuff to think about as you delve into whatever characters you end up with next. So today we are returning to the monologues, and we're going to return to the first show we looked at, Macbeth, which again is one of my personal favorites. As always, the monologue is in the description below. Take a moment to pause me, read it, and then come on back. So the monologue we're looking at today is from a character who is in only one scene. The character only appears this once, never appears again, and yet they are one of the single most important characters in the play. You may recall I mentioned this character actually in a completely different monologue about a completely different character in a completely different play. This is the porter from Macbeth, and the porter is a fool character. And I mentioned the fools and how Shakespeare had to write a part for everyone that was in his troupe. He wasn't casting from a pool of actors, he instead had a group of people that he worked with. They were called the King's Men. But essentially, they had to use everybody, and so the fool role is born. Now, here's the thing. There are a couple of Shakespearean plays where if you remove the fool character from it, it doesn't take away from the overall plot. Merchant of Venice, for example. You can absolutely remove entire chunks of that play and have no bearing whatsoever on the main story. The porter, however, is not a character like that. And actually, in a lot of Shakespeare's plays, those fool parts are essential. Whether it's because they deliver a message that is very important to the theme of the play, or they provide something in terms of exposition or the story that cannot be done in any other way. So what we're going to do really quickly is we're going to look at what happened immediately before in the play and immediately before for this character so that we know how it all goes down for him. So just before this scene, this monologue in the play, Macbeth and his wife kill Duncan, the King of Scotland, who's staying overnight at their castle. And at the end of that scene, they start hearing a knocking at the gate. Now, here's the thing. Macbeth and Lady Macbeth are currently covered in Duncan's blood. And if the person who's at the gate comes on in, because it's another Scottish lord, and sees them covered in blood, and then finds the dead king, well, the jig is up, and frankly, the play ends there. So the Macbeths have to go get changed. They have to clean up. They have to get out of the bloody rags that they're in. And the porter is the reason they can. Because a porter in Shakespeare's day was somebody who would basically be a doorkeeper on a big estate, mansion, castle, whatever, what have you. And he or she would go to the door, and if somebody was knocking, they would see who it was, and if they were somebody that the lord of the manor wanted to let in, they'd let him in. And fortunately for the Macbeths, their porter was a little slow on the uptake that day. So the porter, for his moment before, he was having a little bit of fun the night before. Definitely had a bit too much. And so he just kind of makes fun of the whole thing. And he's hearing that knocking, and he's a little still woozy from his shenanigans the night before. And he starts spouting off as if he were the guy who guards the gates to the underworld. And he lists through these different characters that are coming through his gate and why they're there and all of that. And he talks about things like equivocation and, thinking about something and and hanging your hopes on something that may or may not come, or theft, all of which are really vital to this play. The guy who, they talk about a farmer person that says that hanged himself on the expectation of plenty. He thought his harvest was going to be great. It wasn't, and so it was a bad thing for him. Macbeth expects that his killing Duncan and becoming the king is going to be the best thing ever. It's not. He really messes it up. The next one, the equivocator, basically equivocate meaning that he could tell lies and truth in equal measure. He basically would even everything out. And Macbeth is about to immediately do that in the next scene, where he actually blames Duncan's murder on Duncan's guards and is spinning a tale about that. And then finally the English tailor they mentioned for stealing out of a French hose, and essentially, what is Macbeth doing right now? He's stealing the throne out from under the king and the king's sons. So from the porter's perspective, the porter doesn't know any of this. Not literally, but from the author's perspective, what we have here is a character who knows what this play is about and who can give us in a fun, ridiculous fashion everything we need to know and kind of hit that hammer on the nail there of, hey guys, this is what the play is really about, all while providing an essential service to the plot, preventing the discovery of the murder too soon, allowing the Macbeths to get changed and become presentable for the guests that have just arrived, and to make everything seem right. So yeah, the porter himself has no clue. The porter himself is a stumbling mess during this scene. But without him, Macbeth's plan would not have gone nearly as well. So let's take a look at him. Here's a knocking indeed. If man were a porter of Hellgate, he should have old turning the key. Oh, knock, knock, knock. Who's there in the name of Beelzebub? Oh, here's a farmer that hanged himself on the expectation of plenty. Come in time, have napkins enough about you. Here you'll sweat for it. Knock, knock. Who's there in the other devil's name? Oh, Faith! Here's an equivocator that could swear in both scales against either scale, who committed treason enough for God's sakes, yet could not equivocate himself to heaven. Oh, come in, equivocator. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there? Faith, an English tailor, come hither for stealing out of a French hose. Come in, tailor, here you may roast your goose. Knock, knock, never at quiet. What are you? But this place is too cold for hell. I'll devil porter it no further. I had thought to let in some of all professions that go the primrose way to the everlasting bonfire. Anon, anon. I pray you, remember the porter. And there it is. So one quick little note about a decision made at the very end. You'll notice that suddenly he stops letting people in, and then he has this, what are you? And there's a lot of different interpretations you can take that as. My personal favorite is that as he's joking about being the keeper to the gates of the underworld and the keeper to the gates of where the devil lives, the guy kind of shows up at the end there. And in a play like Macbeth, where there is a lot of supernatural stuff going around, that could very well be the case. But that's just one interpretation. So that's it for today. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.